This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting from Nairobi, 94.4, Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret, 96.7, Nyeri, 90.9, Malindi, 97.7. We're also live on KTN Home until 9 o'clock, and we're live on www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. In the room this and every weekday morning is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and C.T. Muga. Joining us on the line shortly is the Tanzania opposition presidential candidate, Antiphas Mugwai Tundu Lissu. We'll be speaking to him about what's happening in Tanzania. What we know so far is that he's serving a suspension for about a week from the Electoral Commission in Tanzania because of what he was accused of. What had he done again?
He's been, alleged violations of coming from the commission, and we're looking at seditious statements that he's alleged to have made, and also then planning campaign rallies without proper notice and meetings without, again, proper notice from the commission to the commission and also security forces within the country.
Okay, so that is what is happening, and let's see if we can now raise him. Good morning, Tundu Lissu.
Good morning. I'm on Zoom already.
All right. Karibu. Thank you very much for speaking to us, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Guys, let me it'll be very helpful. It will be very helpful.
Yeah. So here we are speaking to you months after we spoke to you before you come back to Tanzania. At that point, you were hoping that you were going to be able to contest in the presidential election. Here you are, right in the thick of it. You are actually contesting in this presidential election. But now you're serving a suspension.
Are you on Zoom? Are you on Zoom?
Well,
Yes.
we are seeing you on Zoom, but it's also good to hear you on the phone so that we have a clear line, because I think the Zoom connection is a bit static for a moment.
So, okay.
So we continue the conversation on the phone. So you're serving a suspension from the Electoral Commission.
That's right. The suspension ends today.
All right. So we were trying to understand what exactly is the accusation. What is the Electoral Commission saying that you violated?
Listen, I'm supposed to have made a wrong statement to the effect that the president has had a brand new airport built in his home village, which is true. The world knows that. You Kenyans know that. Because President Uhuru, only 2 months ago, President Uhuru was at Chato and went by his presidential plane. And a wide array of other allegations. But here is the deal. As I speak to you, I have not seen a copy of the complaint because it was never served on me. I never received a summons to defend myself. I was never called to appear before the ethics committee to present a defense.
Yep.
And therefore, I did not defend myself. And a sentence of suspension for 7 days was passed, and it has not been served on me. So what I know of the suspension and the grounds thereof is what I have read from social media, just like yourselves in Kenya or elsewhere in the world.
So with all that, then why did you agree to abide by the suspension?
I did not agree to abide by the suspension. I simply could not hold any meeting after that because the police wouldn't allow me to. You may have heard that I was prevented from going to an internal meeting just outside Dar es Salaam.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the police have effected this suspension with false alarms. And my colleagues and I decided that, well, if that is the case, we do things the other way, and that is, to do other activities that not involve meetings, because it's only up 7 days after all.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a totally bogus suspension on completely spurious grounds.
And why do you think something like this would be done, Tundu? Why do you think that they would do these on these bogus grounds that you talk about? What would you think would be the reason behind all of this?
Well, President Magufuli and his electoral commission thought that there was not going to be an election but a coronation. They thought it was going to be a clear run to the State House without any contest. And what my candidacy has done is to throw those dreams into the four corners of the world. Mm-hmm. They have a serious challenge. They're actually losing it. And because they are losing it, they had to find a way of slowing me down. And this suspension is their attempt at slowing me down.
So you say that you feel you've gained a lot of ground with Chadema and the campaigns around the country.
I say I have overwhelming support. I have overwhelming support countrywide. If you follow what is going on in Tanzania right now on social media, you will have seen my campaign rallies attended by tens of thousands of people everywhere I have gone. Tens of thousands of people. President Magufuli and his campaign, they have to bribe people to go to their meetings. They have to close all public schools and public offices. They have to bus in people from far and wide. And all we need to do is to say we'll be at such and such a place, and tens of thousands of people will show up to listen to my message. So my campaign has been overwhelmingly successful. It has been massive. And what we are seeing now with the commission suspending me and police violence on the increase is these are clear signs that the regime is panicking.
We thank you for your time. There's something I wanted to ask. I've been paying very keen attention to the process of campaigning in Tanzania, but I've been juxtaposing to that in America, and that's where my question now comes from.
Yeah.
In the event that you win an election, do you foresee the president conceding defeat?
President Magufuli?
Yes.
Well, President Magufuli is not going to concede anything, but we'll have to force him out. He loses, he clings on in power, we'll just have to throw him out.
In the same measure, would you be ready to concede defeat?
I will concede defeat if the election is free, fair, and credible. Nothing more, nothing less.
So tell us, what would a free, fair election, credible of course, election look like? What would be the tenets? What would it represent?
Number one,
yes.
We must have our polling agents sworn in,
yes.
And that is not a given. Number two, we must have our polling agents allowed into polling stations, and that is not a given in Tanzania. Number three, our polling agents must be supplied with result forms with election returns of their polling stations, and that is not a given in Tanzania. And number four, the lawfully elected winners must be declared so, and that is not a given in Tanzania. Those are our basic standards for what we'll see as a free and fair election. And of course, if there is no police violence and violence from system vigilantes that they have recruited countrywide.
Why are
So,
these things not given?
have our polling agents sworn in, have them placed inside polling stations, give them electoral returns of their polling stations, declare the lawfully elected person as a winner, and no violence from anyone. If there is breach of any of those, the election is not free and fair in accordance with our criteria.
As you mentioned these things, you say that they're not givens. As you mentioned these things, you say that they're not givens. Why are they not givens? Why is it not something that the people of Tanzania can look at and say, we expect this to happen?
Yeah. These are the most basic requirements in any democratic election. But here in Tanzania, we have to fight for them. We have to fight for our polling agents to be sworn in, and if they are not sworn in, they are not polling agents. We have to fight to have them into polling stations, and if they are not in the polling stations, you get rigged out. We have to fight in order to get them to be given election returns forms, and these are not. We have to fight in order to get these basic. But we have to fight anyway. If we don't fight, we don't get them. And we have long experience of losers being declared winners because they are CCM candidates. And of course, election violence is not a Kenyan province only. It has been creeping into our elections in the recent past. And especially in this election, we are seeing a spike in police violence and violence from system vigilante.
Mr. Lissu, do I understand you to say that in the years that Tanzania has had presidential elections, that you can't point to one election that could have been considered free and fair and credible?
There has never, ever been a free and fair election in this country since 1995. I have been a participant, an active participant in them all, with the exception of the 2000 general election. But I've been a participant in all other general elections, and I can tell you, and I can point out to reports of the commission itself. In 2010, the commission itself said that it needed independence in order to discharge its functions of supervising our elections. So we have never had any free and fair elections by any standard. Our electoral commission is entirely controlled by the government in power. All of them are presidential appointees. The commissioners and the chairperson and the vice chairperson are all appointees of President Magufuli. The returning officers of all constituencies are appointees of the president. And President Magufuli has said publicly that he does not expect them to declare opposition candidates as winners. So we have never had the kind of luxuries that other democratic countries have had.
So with all of this, if we're going by what you're saying at this point, Tundu, then are you saying essentially then if we're talking about democracy, then it doesn't exist in Tanzania?
No, it exists only in paper.
So with all the push for the things that you're saying, the minimum conditions for free, fair and credible elections, with only 20 days to go, Tundu Lissu, do you feel as if you've made progress in getting these conditions met?
Well, we have said that we will not accept anything less than a free, fair, and credible election on those criteria. If those criteria are not met, we will summon the masses into the streets to protest and to protect their democratic rights.
The question that I'm asking, I'm actually asking the question directly from today, from where you sit today. Are there indications that this election is going to be free, fair, democratic, transparent?
No.
So basically what we are saying then is that you are most likely not going to accept the result of this election.
If it continues like this, we will not.
Let me ask a different question. The things that you say must would consider the basic for you to actually accept any outcome of these elections. Are there things that are entrenched in your laws? Are there things that you can go back to? There?
These are things that are entrenched in our law since 1985. Our Elections Act was enacted in 1985. And these basic demands that are making are part of the law since then. They were part of the law 5 years ago. They were part of the law 10 years ago and 10 years. They have been part of our law for the past 35 years. But during the past 5 years, they have become a matter of struggle.
Are we then to expect, for instance, that if, as you say, these are matters that are entrenched in the law, and well, by that statement, it means that if someone doesn't abide by them, then they will be going against the law. Are there are there instances in Tanzania when people have actually faced the wrath of the law when they have gone against these very laws that determine the electoral outcomes in Tanzania?
Well, Tanzania is a very repressive state. We have suffered these past 5 years. People got killed protesting the same thing 2 years ago. Our entire leadership of the party was almost sent to prison earlier this year because of that protest in March of 2018. Because our candidates in a by-election, our polling agents in a by-election were not sworn in, and people had to protest, and someone was killed by the police, and our entire national leadership was convicted and sentenced. And had they not raised the money quickly, they would have served. They would have been in prison by now. So these are things that are going to be contested. If we don't get those 4-5 basic demands met, we definitely will not accept the results.
Should you become president, what will you do to ensure that these wrongs that you very, very spiritedly talk about are actually set right?
We will carry out much of our system. You Kenyans went through conversant with Kenyan history. You went through a constitutional process that culminated with your 2010 constitution. We need the same. We have a constitution that is essentially a one-party constitution, which was enacted in 1977 at the heyday of the one-party autocracy. And therefore, to make sure that these things never happen again, we'll have to carry out a thorough democratization of our state and our politics. We will have to deal with the legacy of imperial presidency that has been a feature of our constitutional order since 1962. Essentially, our president has become an emperor. He's basically above the law. He's accountable to no one except his God. And because the president is above the law, his appointees are above the law everywhere. And this system has to go. And it is our program, our party's program, that within the first 100 days of assuming the presidency, we will restart the constitution-making process that was scuttled in 2014 during the last year of President Kikwete's administration. So we will carry out a thoroughgoing constitutional political reform to put our country into the 21st century in terms of its democratic standards.
Even as we hear you saying these things and saying that, if you don't see that the results of the election are upheld in a democratic manner, as you've described it just now, and then going on to say that there will be mass protests in the country because of that. Every time we hear mass protests in a country as a result of presidential elections, it would give the connotation of some kind of violence would come out as a result of that, and that you would not be able to maintain the peace. Is that something that you are actually ready to risk in this case? Or are you looking from a point of view that you must then bring everything down to the ground in order to get the results that you're looking for?
Mass protests are the most democratic means of changing the law and changing political power anywhere. It is not just in Tanzania, it is everywhere in the world. Mass democratic action, peaceful protests, these are democratic, the most democratic means of people showing their displeasure with the status quo. And we calling for mass action is not any different from what you Kenyans have done for years. It is not different from other peoples of the world have done to change what they consider unjust rule. And civil disobedience is the most peaceful way of changing politics. We will not engage in violence. We don't have the weapons. If there is violence, it will come from those who are armed to the teeth, and those who will stand in the way of the democratic will of the Tanzanian people. And therefore, it is what it is. It is what I say. It is going to happen. We will summon the people into the streets to protest peacefully against the stealing of the election.
If I understand you from statements that you've made, you accuse the president of contravening COVID regulations. Did I understand you correctly?
I didn't say that. You did not ask me any question about COVID-19.
Okay. Do you feel that the president has been contravening COVID regulations?
There are no COVID regulations here. Here, the president declared us COVID-19 free, brother.
So, are you COVID free?
Well, who knows? There are no statistics. Nothing official is coming out on anywhere. The official position is we are COVID-19 free. So no medical personnel, no government officer has issued any report, any statistics on infections, on fatalities, on recoveries since April 29. And therefore, what we have is just hearsay.
So what we're saying is that if the president has declared that the country is COVID-free, so any evidence regarding COVID that we see around the world then means nothing to the citizenry of Tanzania.
It means absolutely nothing to the government of Tanzania. Nothing. And by the way,
yes,
it is now a crime to say that there is COVID-19 here. It is a crime that will send you to prison.
How did that get entrenched in the law, if I may ask?
Well, regulations, ministerial regulations.
Yeah.
They passed online content regulations which say that if someone issues a report about any pandemic without the approval of the authorities, they commit a crime and they go to prison.
So coming back into this run-up to the election in just a couple of days, you have clearly stated that if the election is not conducted in what you have called free, fair, transparent manner, which includes swearing in your agents and allowing your agents to get into the polling centers, and the manner in which the election results are announced and transmitted, then you are not going to accept the election. Now, I want us to look at it from the side of if then you are not declared the winner of this election, you are unlikely to accept the result if all these measures are not met. And the question that Ndu asked you is it a risk you're willing to take to call for people to protest, to expose them to any kind of harm that may come their way? Yes, you've said that this is peaceful demonstrations is a way of pushing for better and cleaner and better democracy around the world. But let's not forget that in all those places that we've seen, most of the times there are deaths that are reported. Is this a risk that you're willing to take for your supporters? That some of them may get injured, some of them may die?
I do not intend for someone who survived a dastardly assassination attempt 3 years ago. I'm not willing to see anybody killed. But a democracy has to be demanded. and democracy has to be fought for. A democracy has to be paid for. We are not going to accept oppression, and we, as I said, we will do what the democratic world has always done through the edges, protest.
Tundu, do you fear for your security? Do you fear for your life? Like you've just said
Of course I do.
just now that you survived an assassination attempt, as you've put it, some years ago, and you were shot and had to leave the country. Coming back into the country and facing all of this at this time, and then going into the presidential election in about 2 weeks, do you fear for your own safety and security?
Those who shot me 16 times 3 years ago have remained at large. No investigation has ever been done. There is no suspect, no arrest, nothing. And therefore, I don't feel very secure. But that has been the lot of every Tanzanian citizen for the past 5 years. So it's not only me who doesn't feel secure. Every other person here lives in fear of their lives. They live in fear of their freedom. They live in fear of their property, because all these things have come under sustained attack in these 5 years of the Magufuli regime.
Tundu, as we wind up this conversation, you are the presidential candidate for the main opposition party, Chadema, and there are other candidates as well. Just for purposes of our audience, how many other presidential candidates are there in Tanzania in this election, and what is their sentiment about the upcoming election?
Apart from myself and President Magufuli, who is the incumbent, there are 14 other presidential candidates. But seriously, this is a two-horse race. Those 14 other candidates are inconsequential. They are not going to affect the results. This is a two-horse race. It's either me or President Magufuli.
Asante sana for speaking to us today. Antiphas Mugwai Tundu Lissu, the presidential candidate for the Chadema party in the upcoming presidential election in Tanzania. We wish you all the best, and allow us to get in touch with you again just before the election so we can touch base on what your campaign has been doing.
Thank you so much for having me, and my apologies for the previous connectivity problems.
No,
Thanks,
thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you. Say hello to everyone in Nairobi and in Kenya. They are my people as well.
Okay.
Yes, we will. And
They've
they
heard
can
you.
hear you.